Okay, to begin with, we're going to look at diagnosing plant problems. This is one way you can set yourself apart from other landscape companies, is if you know how to recognize problems before they become very serious. And, it may just take 5 minutes to walk the property to see if there's anything showing that wasn't there last week. So we're going to look at the process of diagnosing plant problems, and then we're going to do a quick overview of plant diseases. We'll get much deeper into that, as well as plant insects and mites. So it's important to note that only 10% of the plant problems you see out there are caused by insects and other pests. 25% of the plant problems you see out there are caused by biotic disease, living disease, and about 85% of those are caused by fungi. And then approximately 65% of plant problems are caused by abiotic disease or disorders. So it's important to know whether your plant is supposed to look like it does or if there's some sort of problem. This plant is supposed to have a yellow color to it, this Frisia black locust. It's also important to be aware of potential problems a particular plant is susceptible to. So you want to start off by collecting information, and one of them being, where do you and your client live? There are so many microclimates in our area. Soil types and conditions. If we've got good drainage, bad drainage. Cultural practices. So if you're just coming onto an account, what has been done before by the previous landscape company or from the homeowner. The age of the plant. What kind of weather conditions have been taking place. You want to look for symptoms or clues, and then you're going to look at the entire plant, because where a damage is on a plant can make a difference on what it might be. So when you're looking at abiotic diseases or disorders, all leaves of a certain age might show damage, all foliage within a certain exposure might show damage, and then there's usually a sharp margin between damaged and healthy tissue. And here we have sun scald, so you can see that sharp margin. Very uniform in damage. Not sure what this is. Could be flooding, could be herbicide, but you can see here's this very sharp margin here. For biotic disorders or diseases, they're going to be randomly distributed throughout the plant. Individual plants or a specific family or genera of plants might have this problem. And in this case, we've got rose mosaic virus, which affects the rose family. You want to know your plants, and so those of you who took broadleaf evergreens from me, you know how much I love this plant, and very susceptible to this rust disease. And if you want to be dealing with the rust disease, go ahead and plant this plant, because it will happen. You can see the new growth looks great, but rest assured, by the end of the year or the season, you will have rust on all the foliage here. This used to be my backyard. From a distance, it looks quite beautiful and lush, but if you got close up to these plants, you'd see all the rhododendrons have powdery mildew, and there is a very big aphid infestation here. So you look for patterns, and this is a biotic disorder or disease that's going to be random in pattern, and again on specific family or genera of plants. So most of this rhododendron looks healthy, but you can see one section is got curled leaves and drooping. Here's another view from the side here. It could very well be Phytophthora, which is a root rot. So to confirm, you want to send that into a lab to determine what you need to do here. So again, as I said, all leaves of a certain age might show damage, all foliage within a certain exposure might show damage. You're going to see a sharp margin between damaged and healthy tissue, and here we have drought stress on roses. So you want to ask questions like, when was the problem noticed? Was the damage sudden or gradual? If it was sudden, most likely it's abiotic. How old are the affected plants? Some plants are only going to be around for so long. What percentage of the plants are affected, and what is the degree of injury? If something as like an insect infestation. If there's not that many insects there, you may not have to do anything. You just want to kind of keep an eye on it, because chances are something's going to help you manage that problem. So symptoms are changes in growth or appearance of a plant in response to a damaging factor. Here we have rhododendron lacebug damage, and that's going to be on the older foliage. The newer foliage looks good, but you're going to want to monitor that to see if you're going to see that coming on, usually happening in the hotter times of the summer. So a sign is evidence of a damaging factor, and here we have maple aphids, and they are actually the sign. Another sign would be honeydew, which is a sticky substance that is exuded from the aphids when they suck the plant sap. Okay, here's azalea or rhododendron lacebug. They're actually quite beautiful, but the sign is actually the insect. And then those black spots are the frass from the insect. So those are the signs. And here are the symptoms of maple aphids. You can see the yellowing. The aphids have sucked the sap out of the leaves and are causing the stippling pattern on the leaves. So biotic factors or diseases, these are, or factors really, are plant pathogens such as fungi, bacteria, virus, and nematodes are lumped here. And then insects and mites, of course, are biotic. So fungal leaf spots are irregular to circular. They may have concentric rings. They may have red, yellow, or purple halos. They may have mycelium, spores, or spore structures. And mycelium are the vegetative part of the structure of the fungus. And the spores are the fruiting bodies. And here we have powdery mildew on euonymus. And so you can see those yellow halos. And then you can see the fruiting bodies. You don't even need a microscope for this. Bacterial leaf spots are going to be angular and water-soaked in appearance. They may have irregular yellow halos. You might see wet or dried slime at the edge of a leaf spot, and they may have a foul odor. So here are some leaf spots on tomatoes. On the left, we've got a bacterial spot, Xanthomonas, and you can see they're very angular. They're not round. They're actually kind of squared off, and you can see a lot of times they kind of hug the veins of the leaf. And then on the right here, we've got a fungal leaf disease here, and you can see that it's got the bullseye effect, concentric rings, and then you can see those little black dots are actually fruiting bodies. So viruses are the smallest of plant pathogens. You're never going to see any signs of them. You're only going to see the symptoms. They require living plant cells. As I said, you only see the symptoms, and the symptoms might include mottling, stunted plants, or distorted or misshapen leaves and fruit. And this is lilac ring mottle. Mosaic patterns are another thing you might see. Okay, here we've got nematodes. Nematodes are little worms, and they are inside the leaves here. These are foliar nematodes on chrysanthemum. And here's a cherry rasp leaf virus that's actually caused by dagger nematodes. So nematodes are not only cause damage themselves, but they spread diseases. So causes of abiotic stress, you're not going to see any signs, only symptoms. It could be light in temperature, moisture, oxygen, soil pH, mechanical injuries such as weather or equipment, chemical injury such as pesticides, fertilizer, and pollution. So here we have herbicide damage on Bradford pear. And on the left, we've got abiotic stress. This is iron deficiency on pin oak. So you can see it's very uniform. We've got green veins and interveinal chlorosis. On the right, this is a fungal disease, oak anthracnose, on a white oak. And here are some more abiotic stresses. So we've got, on the left here, we've got basil that's not getting enough light. On the upper right corner, we've got a bark splitting on an azalea from freeze, and then on the bottom right, you've got a deficiency of nitrogen on cucumbers. Okay, this is a potato, and it's got edema. Edema is a disorder that develops when the roots take up the water faster than it can be used by the plant or transpired through the leaves, so you get these blisters. You see this a lot on geraniums. And I know the history of this plant because this is my plant. This is the lower foliage of a white bird of paradise. It was very pot bound and unable to stay moist enough. So the new foliage is fine, but the lower foliage is showing this marginal burn, and it's really due to inconsistent water. Okay, so here's some harmful chemicals. We've got ozone injury on eastern white pine. Here's 2,4-D on grape, and high soluble salts on pelargonium. Okay, here we've got hail damage on the hosta. We've got weed eater damage on a trunk here. And here's arborvitae with deer feeding damage. How perfect is that? So with abiotic factors, you're not going to see a pathogen. Symptoms are going to be at all about the same development stage. You're going to have sharp borders between healthy and affected tissue and a uniform distribution of affected organisms. So here we go. How can you tell the difference? Biotic, it's going to persist. It's not going to go away. You can't prune it out permanently anyway. It's going to change over time, and it's an interaction between the plant and the pathogen. Abiotic is going to be a one-time event. It's not really going to change, and it's caused by weather, mammals, humans, etc. So we're going to talk a little bit about insects and mites. So we're looking at the two main mouth parts for damage are piercing and sucking and chewing. So piercing and sucking mouth parts are found on leafhoppers, lacebugs, scale insects, whiteflies, aphids, mealybugs, psyllids, spider mites, and other mites. This is not an exhaustive list. There's many, many insects with sucking mouth parts. So you probably heard me talking about this last quarter in conifers. Here's hemlock woolly adelgid. They have piercing, sucking mouth parts. We've got aphids on milkweed. Here's a pine needle scale, and then a tarnished plant bug. And when you hear about bugs, bugs are in a particular order of insects, true bugs. They have piercing, sucking mouth parts. Some of them are beneficial, and some of them are pests. So on the left here, we've got aphid damage on a plum, and then on the right, you have leafhopper damage on roses. Thrips have rasping, sucking mouth parts, and don't let this fool you. These insects are incredibly tiny. It's really hard to see them with the naked eye. But on the right, this is the sort of damage they do. They pierce the foliage and then they rasp it off, so it's sort of gets a silvery appearance to it. Chewing insects, there's a lot of those too. Here we've got cutworm. We have larger elm leaf beetle, and so the thing with beetles is both the adults and the larvae have chewing mouth parts, so they may actually be damaging different parts of the trees in their life cycle, but they are both having chewing mouth parts. And then on the right here, we've got madrone leaf miner, and you may have seen this out there. It's a moth, but there's a caterpillar inside the leaf that will actually cause these tunnels. And here's root weevil damage you've probably seen on many rhododendrons around here. So the adult beetle or weevil, which is a beetle, causes this damage, and then the larvae live in the root zone over the winter. So you might want to, especially if you're thinking about using pesticides, you might want to check this out before you go ahead and do control. You want to use research-based information. I'm posting these plant disease management handbooks and insect management handbooks online. You want to look at WSU HortSense, and you could send things to the WSU Plant Clinic. There's a lot of resources that I am going to share with you.